Welcome to another episode of the Mind of Business Success podcast. I'm your host, Alicia Cramer, and I have Jeffrey with us. Ooh, you're gonna love Jeffrey. His energy is contagious in a good way. uh, Jeffrey, you are so unique in so many ways, and I'm really grateful for the opportunity to share you with my listeners today. You bring such a unique twist on leadership and entrepreneurship, and um, you're doing some really unique, game-changing stuff in this crazy winter, we'll call it, that we're all going through culturally, in our own lives individually and in business. I want to welcome you to the show first and foremost before I take up too much airtime.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm super excited. We met years ago, but got reconnected recently, and it's just been such a joy. So I'm very excited to dive in with you.
As we dive in, we're going to be taking everyone with us on a bit of a journey. We're going to talk a bit more about you and what you do. Before we get into that, um, I want to bring people up to speed with what you and I were just discussing before
Hmm.
I hit the record button.
Yeah.
We're going through changes. Uh, some people say it's economic.
Changes.
Everybody's got their different way of perceiving
Yeah.
what's going on,
Yeah.
but everybody feels it, regardless
Right.
of what lens they're perceiving it through. I want to talk about that from your perspective, and let's bring everybody into our conversation.
All right. Great. Yeah. So, as we are saying, all around us in our culture and in our businesses and in our lives, there's so much that used to work that's not working now, right? Things are falling apart. We look at our country, look at our world, we look at whatever, and we go, oh my God, what is happening? And in business, when that happens, it usually shows up in revenue, right? At least at some point it does. Of like what used to sell isn't selling, what people wanted, they don't seem to want anymore. Um, what do I do? Where do I go? Where do I turn? And why is this happening? So I mentioned to you, one of the resources that's been helpful to me is a book called The Fourth Turning is Here by Neil Howe. He's a historian and demographer, and he talks about cultural cycles and that our culture has cycles that are roughly to 80 to 100 years long that he calls a saeculum. Um, and in that 80 to 100 years, we have four seasons: spring, summer, fall, and winter. And we are currently in winter. Winter is the season where we're most at odds, where things are falling apart because we're getting ready to remake culture, right? And that historically, during winter, again, these seasons are 18 to 25 years long, just like a generation is. Um, yeah, we are most at odds. And a lot of the things that we could rely on, we can't rely on anymore. Uh, and around the bend is spring, which is where we remake society and whole new understandings of how the we is occurs, right? Um, so how does this show up for us in business and in leadership? What I see is just as we were talking, a lot of things that used to sell, that used to work in the marketplace, don't work. Fourth turnings are a time when we have the lowest level of trust collectively. And our trust index has been falling for decades. But in a fourth turning in particular, trust falls to all-time lows. And it can be difficult when you rely on one way of working. And, this is my core business, and this is how we make money, and this is what we do. When that stops working, where do we go? And how do we make decisions on where to go and what might work in its stead? Um, and that's, I think, where the big opportunity lies right now. So many of the people I work with come to me with some form of an intuitive nudge or an intuitive sense of a direction they're meant to go. And it usually doesn't always make sense right out the gate. Right? Like, is this a business? Is there a market for this? Uh, and wherever that like, is usually where the big opportunity lies, right? Because when things fall apart, what is happening in equal measure to things falling apart is that a new yearning and hunger grows in the market, right? That people can't put their finger on, that people can't necessarily name. They don't know what to Google or shop for, but they know that whatever it's been in the past isn't it anymore, right? And I have a dog with me. My apologies. Um, and so, what do we do with that? Well, I think that's the time to get quiet, to go more introspective, to listen more deeply, both to your own intuition, but also in the marketplace, right? What needs are going unmet that people are talking about more and more and more? And how might your skill and capacity, as well as your calling in life and in your leadership, how might that produce an answer to the growing unmet needs in the marketplace that weren't unmet in the same way prior to this moment? And I think that's where the big opportunity lies.
This is right in line with a lot of people would say births innovation, where those new businesses, those new products, those new services, the new whatever.
Hmm.
It comes out of what some people say is necessity. Things change, and now there's a new need in the marketplace. And when someone keys into that, well, holy, it's game changing,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
And so, what I'm hearing you say, correct me if I'm wrong, is that this is the season where that is birthed.
Yes, yes, absolutely. And it's also the season where the seeds for it get planted, right? Where we start to go, okay, I might need to restructure what I've been doing. I might need to restructure how I'm doing it. I might need to restructure even the narrative about what we do out in the marketplace, because it's changing. You know, you've probably heard this word zeitgeist, right? The German word spirit of the times. I break zeitgeist into two different forms of zeitgeist: cultural zeitgeist and spiritual zeitgeist. The cultural zeitgeist, my simple definition for it is emerging trends in a marketplace. Uh, and that's in business. It is also in culture, right? But in the context of business, emerging trends in a marketplace. Spiritual zeitgeist is an emerging consciousness in a marketplace, right? It's that sense that we're familiar with identity shifts as people, as individuals, right? The classic one being a midlife crisis or a midlife opportunity, right? Where who you thought yourself to be starts to fall apart, and then you get more connected to a deeper sense of self and emerge that way. But the same thing happens in any given culture. That cultures, including corporate cultures and cultures of collectives like industries, go through these shifts of who we knew ourselves to be isn't it anymore, right? And who we're called to be isn't who we currently are, right? And who we need to be to get through this needs to shift and change. I find that the more people are in touch with both a combination of a cultural zeitgeist and a spiritual zeitgeist, the more they can do that really avant-garde innovation in a marketplace. Where they go, ooh, I see where things are going, but I also feel this sense of what's possible, who we can be, who we need to be, right? So I'll give you an example. One of my clients, Peter Stewart, came to me a few years ago, and I'll never forget our first consultation, our first phone call, and he said, "Yeah, I just keep." Now he's a real estate developer, right? Like large scale apartment buildings in the East Coast, Eastern Seaboard. Um, and he comes to me and he said, "I keep hearing this kind of inner voice, this inner message that I'm meant to develop a new form of real estate that helps people self-actualize." And he's like, "I know that sounds bananas. I have no idea what it means, but it won't leave me." And I'm told you're the guy to go to help me with this, right? So that's an example of just this like inner voice, this sixth sense, this there's something that wants to emerge through me, and something in me tells me I need to follow it. I don't know where it's going to go. I have no idea what the business may or may not be from it. I just have to follow it, right? And what most people do around those things is they dismiss them. They throw them out the window because we look at what is and go, nope, I don't know what the hell this means. I don't know where this might, who's asking for, can I please live in an apartment building where I self-actualize? Like, go to an ashram. Like, what are you talking about? Um, but as you follow it, it starts to unfold like a flower blossoming, right? The petals opening. And with Peter, so one of the things I always say is that every inspired idea has a life force to it, right? And that everything required for its full expression is connected to it. It's actually not connected to you. It's the hub, you're the spoke. So this is a stewardship model of business, a bit more than an ownership model of business, right? That there's something larger than me that I'm connected to, and I'm here to steward and bring out into the world. Um, so as we did the work, right, and I guide my clients into how to listen to that energy and start to gather the ingredients. It emerged as, uh, oh, there's lots of technology in the world right now, in a lot of different disciplines that know a thing or two about how to use the built environment to help people decelerate, to help their nervous system calm, and help them essentially drop into, their body and be at home in themselves. So this is things like color theory, lighting technology that works with your circadian rhythms, biophilia and biomimicry, bringing plants into buildings, right? There's research behind all of this now, including in offices. If somebody can see a tree from an office, they're multiple times more productive. Uh, here's the one I love. He worked with a professor at the University of Oregon who was studying uh, shapes in nature, which are often called sacred geometry, things like nautilus, right? That repeat and show up over and over again in nature, and the impact of these shapes on humans' subtle nervous system. Uh, and that just being around these shapes helps calm the nervous system. So then we created a company called Frequency. And Frequency is a company that Peter created it's an intellectual property company and a consulting arm that brings this approach into large scale apartment buildings. So, for example, worked with a textile company to create carpets that are in the hallways with these shapes in them. That's all research backed, right? That in the common spaces, instead of a big ass TV room, there's a cold plunge. Um, all these amenities that especially people in their professionals in their 20s and 30s are looking for. All right. They're listening to Huberman Lab. They're understanding high performance. And so first we had to get the picture. What is this thing? Oh, the translation of apartment buildings where people can self-actualize, translated into bringing this technology which both comes from science and ancient wisdom, into this application, large scale apartment buildings. And that's the first vision. And then the second part of it is how do we build a narrative that capitalizes on the emerging zeitgeist, that cultural and spiritual, the trends and the hunger, right? The I'll start with a spiritual one for Peter's work. We have an epidemic of loneliness in our world, right? This is well documented. Uh, and people have higher rates of depression. They're also living and working from home at higher rates than ever before, right? People are hungry to feel good again and hopefully to feel good where they live. Now, most large scale apartment buildings feel like a big old hotel, sterile, right? Long hallways with windows on one wall, um, awful lighting usually, right? It doesn't help us feel good. So there's a deep yearning, especially in in that demographic, and that demographic in terms of trends are people who want to own less, they want to experience more, they're willing to invest in high quality experiences. Uh, there's also a trend of a massive continued growth of wellness in any sector of wellness, including these technologies in high end homes and high end resorts. But no one's brought it to residential apartment living. That's the opportunity in the marketplace, right? And this is somebody who came to me saying, like, I have a real estate development company, but there's something else I'm meant to be up to. And all I have is this harebrained message I keep hearing, and I don't know what the hell to do with it, or if there is something to do with it. And if so, is it a business? You know? And last thing I guess I'll say with the Peter example is there's also the narrative arc, right? The brand story. And I'll never forget Peter's first pitch deck um, was very mission driven around we need people to be their best to contribute the most because we need more people in our culture that can contribute their best and and I'm like that's all very pretty. Thank you very much. Now, you're a real estate developer. Would you buy this? Right? Because he's selling this approach. You know, you can have a frequency building. He's selling it to other developers around the country. And he's like, no, I wouldn't buy it. I'm like, yeah, I thought as much, right? What do real estate developers care about? Oh, they care about differentiation and retention. Oh, well, we've got that in spades. Nobody is taking this approach to residential real estate, and there's tons of data that there's a hunger for it in the market in terms of emerging trends, the cultural zeitgeist piece. And in terms of retention, that's simple. People love to be in places where they feel good. And this is all research, science backed data that says take these approaches cumulatively, you'll have spaces where people feel really good, right? So it's actually a really easy sale for something that's actually quite cutting edge in that market.
You've made it so simple that anybody listening could say, that's brilliant. That makes so much sense. But at the beginning, when it's just this weird inner hunch,
Hmm.
it's just this reoccurring feeling. It's so abstract, it's so etheric. That's where a lot of people need the support. And that's why what you do is so unique and it's so valuable. And that's why I'm so excited to share you, because I'm sure that there are people listening who they're like, is this divine intervention? Like, where did this man come from? This episode is speaking to my soul
Hmm.
because what you're doing here is you're taking this part of us that we can't quite put into like some kind of tangible, perfect, defined whatever. and
Yeah.
you're taking it and you're making it so tangible,
Yeah.
so practical.
Well,
And that's the beauty, right? It's that beautiful balance between the two.
it is practical. It just doesn't look practical at first. Because what we're doing is the work of taking unrealized potential and realizing it in the marketplace. I talk about turning frequency into form. Everything is energy, everything's frequency first. And if you tap into a certain frequency, you start to hear what's in that frequency. It's like a radio station playing, right? Um, oh, in that frequency, I hear that I'm meant to be doing this other thing. And it feels like it's maybe about this and maybe with this approach. But there's not form to it yet, right? And because we're tuning into unrealized potential, right? Uh, there's no precedent for it yet. So most businesses are actually replicating other things in the marketplaces, right? Uh, we see something, we go, oh, yeah, I could do that too. Maybe, hopefully, I could do it better. I'll throw my hat in the ring and start a business and do that thing, right? And that's fine. That's great. We need a lot of things that get replicated and handed down and keep going. Uh, and if you think about services in particular, things like plumbing or a mechanic or an attorney or a financial advisor, right? They learn the craft, hopefully develop some mastery at it, and then sell it. And there's some benefits to that, right? There's a lot of conscious demand in the marketplace. There's many models to follow. You're responding to existing market demand, and there's proven ways to succeed. The challenge with it is there's low pent up hunger because the market's saturated, right? Uh, they're overserved. You have to do competitive pricing versus premium pricing because you're competing in a crowded market. But when you're responding to something that is emerging in the world, that's bubbling up, where you're a forerunner because you're tuned into what's emerging, right? There's some challenges, which is that there's low conscious demand. People don't know to ask for it because they haven't seen it before, right? But there's high pent up hunger because this, I think of, over here, you're tuning into something in the unrealized potential. And over here in the world of things that are realized, most of what's being served up to people is actually echoes of the past. We've seen it and then it got replicated and replicated and replicated. And the more time goes by, what is an echo of the past? There, there starts to be this second group of people that emerge with a yearning. They have a yearning for things, needs that are being unmet in the solutions that are an echo of the past. And the larger the echo grows as time goes by, the larger the field of people that have a yearning for something new grows. And actually, when you have that sixth sense, when you have that calling of something I think there's something here, it's in direct relationship to the yearning in the market. So there's actually already a market over there. Just nobody has seen it yet, and nobody's built anything to serve it yet. And that's why there's such potential there. Now, when you do it, some great benefits are that there's little to no saturation because people are being woefully underserved, right? As you do that, you're also talking to sophisticated buyers because they've burned through all the other solutions. Sophisticated buyers are willing to pay a premium for sophisticated solutions, right? So you get out of competitive pricing, get into premium pricing. And the risk there is not connecting with that market, not nailing the conversation that those people are in and having them see this new thing as a solution they've been hungry for, right? And that's where we need to do accurate translation of that frequency to form.
And you're the guy to do
That's one of the reasons I'm on the planet.
it. So I mentioned glowingly that I adore you and I love your energy and I'm grateful for the opportunity to bring you to my audience because your message is it's so needed at this time. And I'm a little bit sad that we have literally burned through our entire episode already. Um, so I'm grateful because I get, little doses of you. For my audience, how can they get some more of
Yeah.
Jeffrey?
Probably the easiest way, website is thecourageousmessenger.com, thecourageousmessenger.com. You can find me on Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn and all the places. But that's probably the best place to find me. I have a weekly message that gets sent out that helps people along this particular journey. It's just called Monday Insights, but it's a particular insight each week to help people answer this call and bring the thing they're meant to bring into the world at this time and the way they're meant to bring it.
So good. Everybody's got to hear that call for themselves.
Yeah,
And there's always the supporting mechanisms, right? To
absolutely.
help create that as a physical manifested reality. So I want to thank you so much, Jeffrey, for spending your time with us today and sharing so much of your wisdom.
It's been an honor and super fun. Thanks for having me.
And of course, got to thank everyone who is with us listening. You know, we're doing this for you. If you haven't already subscribed, make sure you do so. And until next time, we will see you in the next episode.